Good day, and welcome once again to the Silerlight Show. I've been noticing lately this lack of accountability from people. It's never their fault. Whatever it is they do, whether they accidentally, slowly back into you, which should normally be solved by a conversation, a handshake, and the agreement to contact each other's insurance. No, it's not my fault. You shouldn't have been parked there. Why did you leave your car there? Logically, this is, of course, inconsistent. But it's a mentality that's spreading itself. And here's where it is the worst. TV, movies, entertainment in general. Hey, it's okay. You go out, you make the occasional lousy movie. Kevin Costner, Waterworld. Who'd he blame for that? He kept his mouth shut. There was studio interference, there were budget problems, a hurricane wrecked the set. Who'd he blame? Nobody. William Shatner, Star Trek V. Again, storyline changes, studio interference, budget problems, you name it. Shatner has never come out and said, "This isn't my fault." He took the blame, and he lives with it every day. But now, you're getting movies like Snow White, where they re-engineered a fairy tale that's very well known and beloved. And that's Disney's right to do. They own the rights to the film version, and they're going to keep those rights as long as they possibly can. But when you start coming out and having the actors and actresses blaming the public for not understanding what they're doing, for not being woke enough, and that's why they don't come out, no. The problem is, the movie wasn't great. I'm not saying the actors and actresses didn't perform their best. No, I wouldn't say that. I'm not saying that the directors and writers didn't do their best. I'm not saying that. But their best wasn't good enough. Am I saying there's a problem with any particular racial group, any particular message? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is your best wasn't good enough in that particular project. People still want that 1930s cartoon, which is horribly outdated. I actually had a conversation with my daughter about it the other day, and her eyes popped open when I said, it's pretty creepy when a prince, a pauper, whatever you want to change this person over, comes across an unconscious and possibly dead body. Remember, it's a poisoned apple. The grim fairy tale version certainly says it's a death. And his first instinct is to kiss it. This is problematic. I understand you want to clean that up a little bit, but it's part of the movie. That's the way things go. Well, part of the fairy tale. So you better figure out a way to deal with it. And there were lots of ways they could have gone about it, but they chose the way that they did. The dwarves. Well, we couldn't possibly use dwarves there. That would be offensive. But I guess Peter Dinklage's existence is offensive. That would have been a natural role to have him in. But no, we have to replace him with a whole bunch of diverse characters. Now, even here, I'm supporting you. There's not a lot of roles in Hollywood or on TV for people of diversity. And I support them every time they get into a franchise, get into a good movie, anything like that. Totally behind them. But then they took this diverse cast, which might have been more interesting to explore, and replaced them with CGI. So you've now corrupted the original tale, you've corrupted the very message that you've been trying to send about diversity, equity, and all that sort of stuff. And I have zero problems with DEI. But your whole movie is based around the most idiotic reworking of a classic fairy tale. And for what? So the studio could lose a couple $100 million on a vanity project? Which brings us to Star Wars. John Boyega, fantastic actor. His character, Finn. Do you remember the marketing material when The Force Awakens first came out? He was the main character. That's what they were presenting to us. A stormtrooper who defected from the First Order. And, at first he's nervous about his place in the universe. Who wouldn't be? And they parlayed that into a character that runs away for 2 movies, but gets a heroic instinct at the last minute. And in the 3rd movie, they kind of shove him to one side. I have no problem with John Boyega complaining. That probably wasn't the role he signed up for. And I'm not saying anything against Rey. I'm just saying they did this whole misdirection in their ads. And then they wonder why there's backlash. But no. John Boyega and the studio have accused Star Wars fans of being racist because we were tricked into getting behind a character that wasn't the one you wanted. That kind of marketing might work for, say, the Avengers, where we think we're following Ant-Man and surprise, it's Captain America instead. You might be able to get away with that. But in a franchise that you're trying to breathe new life in, a compelling character arc is where you have to go. And like I said, I believe that was there. But it wasn't the fans being racist. Are you kidding? The fans showed up to all 3 movies in droves. They didn't like them, but you still made huge amounts of money. Now, Harrison Ford, we're kind of jumping from the Star Wars theme to the Star Wars theme. Harrison Ford was on, I believe it was Letterman, and he was asked, why are you reprising Indiana Jones when you're 70, 80 years old? Why did you say you'd never do Han Solo again, and you're back doing it? Like, how do you look yourself in the eyes and still keep doing it? And Harrison Ford has my respect, not for being an old white guy that's best years are behind him, but he said the answer that makes the most sense. He says, money. Yeah, that is 100% the right answer. Daniel Craig said he would never do another James Bond movie again. Never say never again. Such a prophetic title. Because they threw enough money at him until he said yes. I don't particularly like mowing the grass, plunging toilets, all that sort of housework. But I have money invested in this house, so it's worth my time to keep my investment. That's the same thing these Hollywood actors are saying. And don't begrudge the checks Hollywood actors get. Disney's a big, multi-billion-dollar company. If they're paying some person you may or may not have, let's take John Boyega. If they're paying him $5 million for an appearance, plus residuals, plus royalties and everything, that's basically the same as Burger King paying you or I minimum wage to do our job. Because remember, an actor or an actress not only films the movie, they then have to do the personal appearances. This is why Doctor Who has so many problems with their actors, because they're signing up for 3 years of such an intensive schedule. They have to film the Doctor Who experience. They have to make all these tours and, go to schools, hospitals and stuff like that, dressed as the Doctor to bring hope and joy and put eyes on the series. But where John Boyega goes wrong is he says, the problem is the fans are racist. No, the fans paid your paycheck. You made your money out of it. You put a lot of work into it, I grant you that, and it wasn't as well received as you liked. But remember, you're supposed to be the main character. We, the audience, didn't do that to you. We, the audience, wanted to love you. And you know what? I honestly still love his performance. But John Boyega has to realize the writers failed him. The publicity failed him. Actually, I'm going to say that publicity did him a favor because it thrust him into the spotlight when not a lot of people knew who he was. So why do we have this epidemic of not taking responsibility? As an author, I can tell you why. It sucks. I have to do something every time I write a book. Actually, many times. You write the thing, that's your first milestone. You put 80,000 words on paper, then you got to go through it. And you can't just hit spell check, because there's an ebb and flow to language that grammar checkers don't understand, that artificial intelligence doesn't understand. There's a certain way people sound, just like the way I sound when I'm talking to you right now. And that's the trick of editing a book. Does this conversation make sense? Does a person really talk this way? Are these the mannerisms I wanted? And when you're editing your own stuff, it sucks. Because I can't just sit back and say, oh, my friend Kathleen made a mistake on page 3, but I'll just fix that. It's no problem. You're saying, why did I make that mistake in that way? So, avoiding responsibility is because it's difficult to deal with failure. But corporations avoiding responsibility is basically trying to take your money and justify it to themselves. We live in a scary modern age, and if this trend continues, don't know where it's going to stop. We already have children that cannot be failed. We have people that don't take responsibility, and what happens now when you grow up to be an adult? Well, apparently you don't take responsibility. With that, we wish to thank you for joining us for the Silerlight Show. Sorry for going back in time. I've had a very interesting new year. Not sure whether this is going to be a regular segment, a recurring segment, or something I toss on the garbage. But no matter what, we wish to thank you for joining us. Take responsibility. It costs nothing except a little bit of your self-esteem, and you can always do something. Drown your sorrows. Treat yourself to an extra bagel. Whatever it might be. There's a lot more healthy ways than just saying, oh, not my fault. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic day.